Welcome to Amud Yomi Shiur. New exciting sugya, new Mishnah, Ein Ches Amud Aleph, a whole new thing, easier than the previous sugya, promise. Definitely easier than Ezu and Eshech, which doesn't say much. And I think it's time we start. We start the Mishnah, Secher, Sechamor, and of course the Shiur is Lilu Nishma Sovi Meir Menachem and Akiva, Ruth Bas Shalom Sor Bas Moshe, Leah Bas Tomo, and Chana Bat Sima, Zlafuas, Leah Bas Tomo, Chana Bat Sima, Naama Bas Rachel Rama, Leah Bas Etel Chaya, Pnina Chaya Bas Gula Rochel, Chaya Sar Bas Yoel, and Latzlochas Chen Bas Yardena, Yosef Gavriel Ben Marta, Shem Shutzen Yeshua. Says the Holy Mishnah, Elige Mishnah. A soicher is a chamor. A person rented a donkey. What do you need? What do you do when you have to schlep things from place to place? You take a donkey. Yeah, it's an animal of burden, and you rented it. You rented it, and now lo lichoy bahar. The original owner who rented out, the hired the donkey owner, told you specifically take it only in the mountains. Yeah, my idea is that you should walk with a donkey in only the mountainous area. Valicha babika, that smart Alec, that guy who rented the donkey and he's using the soicher, the renter, instead of taking it to the mountain, he took it in the bika, in the valley. He took it to the valley. Yeah, he just did the other way around. Yeah, bibika valicha bahar, or the other way around. He was told by the balabais to take it to the valley only, and he disobeyed the rabbi, not the rabbi, he disobeyed the owner of the donkey and took it to the mountain. Yeah, he took it to the place where the animal is not supposed to be. Even though the distance is the same distance. In other words, let's say I rented the car or rented the donkey for 10 mil, and that is the distance that I took, same distance. However, Umeisa, at the end of the day, the animal died. Chayev. Then the one who rented, the soicher, is chayev to pay for the fact that the animal died. He disobeyed the Baal Habais. And from this part of the mission, it sounds like that we don't care why you died. Even if you died out of a heart attack, even if the death is seemingly disconnected to the behavior of the owner or the location, still is chayav, and the Gemara will explain why. That's the first part of the Mishnah. Comes the second part. Same story. A person got the donkey. He rented a donkey. He's now walking with his nice donkey. Yeah, Yankee Doodle. He's walking, and the idea was he's supposed to take it to the mountain, and he changed, and he's disobeying and changing the rules, and he took it to the valley where the animal is not supposed to be walking. Now says the Mishnah, oh, depends why he died. Don't be so quick, so harsh to be mechayev the soicher. Depends. Im hichlika potu. Oh, if the animal slipped in the bika, he was walking in the valley and he slipped in the valley, then he's exempt. Why? Because what's more slippery, the mountain or the valley? The valley is flat and nice and steady. The mountain is a slippery slope. Literally, it is. Yeah. The mountain is more slippery. If you told me your animal is a mountain animal, supposed to be in the mountain, and you're not concerned of the animal slipping, I took it to a place where it's less slippery. So obviously, if it slipped there, it's not my fault. Because when it comes to slipping, then I was actually an extra good boy. It's true, a change from what you said. So what? What are you, Kadosh Baruch Hu? I'm not the turn Rabboni of the Soicher. At the end of the day, what I did was not, the cause of death had nothing to do with the opposite of the problem that I caused. Therefore, says the Mishnah Potter, the Mishnah backs the Soicher. If he died out of heat, we all know that usually it's hotter in the valley and it is more humid and more stuffy and more sticky in the valley rather than in the mountain. Yeah, you go to Tzfat and you go to Tel Aviv, it's a different kind of weather. Yeah, up in the mountain, the air is nicer and cooler, generally speaking. And therefore, im huchma, if the reason why the animal died is we could definitely attest to the fact that he died because of choim. You can see that he was sweating. They saw that they were sweating, and it was very hot. The heat was killing it, literally. Then you're chayev. I told you to go to the mountain. You went to the valley where it's hotter, and he died out of heat. That's the doing of your hands, right? And Mimele, you have to pay. The soicher has to pay. Now the other way around, the flip side. Lolicho babika roilicho bahau. Let's say the person now told him, who's the person? The owner told him specifically, you know, my chamor, what a nice animal this one. It can only walk nicely. Not that he said the words it can only walk, but he was clearly verbally understood that this animal is supposed to be walking where? In the bika, in the valley. It's a valley animal, that's where it likes to be. Mr. Smarty Pants all of a sudden took it where? Up to the mountains against the will of the owner. If it slipped, you're chayev. Why? I told you to take it to a place where it's nice and flat and steady and good and wide. And you took it to a mountainous place which is more slippery and it slipped. And therefore you have to pay because that's a direct result. The death of the animal is a direct result of the bad location. If he died out of heat, yeah, it was sweating and too hot and died eventually, then he's potter because the mountain is, we're talking in reality where the mountain is cooler than the valley, which it usually is, and therefore you told me I'm not defending the soicher, the borrower, the another borrower, the renter. You told me to take it to Chatchila to a very hot place, and it's okay. Yeah, the animal was born in Tel Aviv. It's never too hot. Yeah, can wear a wetting jacket in the summer, not hot. It's a Tel Avivian animal, can stand the heat, no problem. Same huchma, potter. Yeah, when I went to the mountain, yeah, I took it to what? An even better place. And there he died out of heat, then it's not my fault. I was originally supposed to take an even hotter place. However, there's an exception to the rule that comes to mountain. Let's say the animal died because it was very rigorous walk all the way up the mountain. It was supposed to be in the valley. That's a reality where the owner told him take it to the valley. And now he took it up to the mountain, and you could tell that the way up, the ascension was very hard for the animal, and that's why he died. Then he's chayiv again. Up until now, all that will be explained in the Gemara. Thank you for not yet asking questions. Now we're going to the second part of the Mishnah. Second part of the Mishnah. Before we read the second part of the Mishnah, I can imagine questions coming up. So I'm giving you a very small preface, very small introduction. We are used to the idea of the customer is always right. Yeah, especially if you come from America or England. So the customer is always right. And therefore, obviously, if I made a condition or whatever, if my expectations were not met, I expected a high quality something and I didn't get it. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. By hook or by crook, you have to give me what I paid for, what you the customer service person, the one giving the services, you're supposed to provide me with whatever I want. In halacha, it's not like that. Halacha believes in the concept called mazel. Sometimes when a person provides a service or an item to a customer and the service was not provided, but it's nobody's fault, literally bad luck. Bad luck can be everyone's bad luck. Then conceptually, sometimes the service giver does not have to compensate the one who's supposed to get the service because it's not his fault. It's not your fault either. We already had that concept before, if you remember, about the poyalim. Yeah, the poyalim, remember, they came to the field in the middle of the day, everything started raining, and their irrigation job was redundant. They will not be paid. Why? It's not my fault and not your fault that it started raining. It just happened mishamayim, literally. Let's now see the Mishnah in light of what I just told you. A person rented a donkey, very nice, for a day, not for a day, but let's say at least a month. The Hevrika, all of a sudden, the chamor, out of nowhere, lo leinu, became visually impaired, became partially blind. Hevrika, the Gemara says blind, and then I saw the Rishonim say it's partially blind. The quality of the animal is still useful. It can still walk with a masa, with a burden, but the quality just went down. It's like an accident happened. It's nobody's fault. Mina shamayim, all of a sudden, I don't know, the retina tore in one eye. I don't know what happened. We have a doctor here, can tell us better than me. Yeah, lamaisa, something happened to the eyes suddenly, and the animal is now, visually impaired. Yeah, the vision is not as good at all. Oy shenasis angaria, or all of a sudden, and that's a big story. I'm just telling you the general idea. Nasis angaria, the king, the government, all of a sudden decided that they take this animal for a short period of time. They're going to take the animal for themselves. The soldiers of the king, they need people's horses and donkeys, v'chule, and they just have the liberty to take the animals for a week or two, and then if they're nice enough, the Gemara will talk different realities, they give it back to you. All of a sudden, bad luck. Let's say I'm supposed to rent you my donkey. Yeah, let's say I have a lot of donkeys for rent, and I rented my donkey from Rosh Chodesh Sivan till Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. All of a sudden, a few days after Shavuos, what happens? The king comes and takes the donkey for a week. So now, what happens? What's a common denominator between these two cases of becoming partially blind or be taken as a tax? Bad luck. Neither I nor you created the situation of the animal now being much slower. Imagine yourself, yeah, you get a car, and all of a sudden something happens to the engine. Instead of going 120, the maximum is 80. Everything is slower. Or let's say you rented it for a month. Now, for a whole week, it's going to be by the king. So something out of the blue happened, and it's nobody's fault. That's A. B, you can still use it. In other words, the animal will come back to you, yeah, but 1 week less. Or, yeah, maybe I can compensate you later. That's another question. But in the middle of the 1 month where you want to use the donkey for a project, you want to go back and forth, 1 week or 10 days is a hole in the middle, yeah? Or the animal is blind, but it's nobody's fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault either. Then what? In such a case, the owner can tell the renter, yeah, the rent a donkey owner can tell the renter, I'm sorry, that is what you have. In other words, I'm not supposed to give the Gemara. Will there are many exceptions and stories here. I'm just talking in general. Generally speaking, if you have some kind of functional chamor, even though it's not the best, yeah, and it's not the whole time and not the whole speed and not everything, and it's no one's fault, it's your mazel that caused you, just like my mazel, then generally speaking, says the Mishnah, the owner has no responsibility. Yeah, this is not America, apparently. This is the Mishnah. No questions for the simple reason that there's a lot of stories, exceptions, what kind of text, what kind of this, what did he tell him? Generally speaking, that's a general picture of the Mishnah, which the Gemara will dissect to pieces. If it's not my fault nor your fault, B, you still have some kind of animal that's functional, right? And I promised you this chamor now is slower. What can I do? Yeah, therefore, the balabais, the owner, is not committed to anything beyond what the animal situation right now. It doesn't have to give him anything else. However, continues the Mishnah, Mesa Onishbara, let's say the animal died. Yeah, in the middle of the 2 weeks into the rent, the animal just drops dead. I don't know. Do animals get heart attacks? They do, right? Yeah. Mesa oy nishbara, or it's broken, meaning it's more than just partially blind. It's completely blind, completely. I don't know. Somebody came and cut off its leg. It's completely not in use, completely out of order. Then chayv lamid lo chamo. Oh, even though it's nobody's fault that all of a sudden it died, or all of a sudden it got seriously injured, nobody's fault really. The owner is now mechuyev to give mechuyev to give the renter another chamor instead, because he has no chamor at all. In other words, I'm supposed to give you some kind of chamor. When it's lower quality chamor, it's nobody's fault in the reisha. I don't have to give anything instead. When you have no chamor whatsoever, you're supposed to get some kind of chamor. I offered you a chamor, a donkey. There is no donkey bichlal. I'm supposed to now, says Rashi, take the nevela. That's also a question between Rashi and the Rosh. The balabais should take the dead corpse of the chamor, sell it to whoever wants to buy it. I don't know, maybe some people interested dead chamorim for the skin, for the, I don't know, whatever that. Maybe some people eat donkeys, I don't know, the goyims maybe, and therefore, and with that money, I'll buy you maybe a lower class chamor, or Rashi says possibly I'll have from my own pocket, get you another chamor instead for that time. I'm fully responsible if the animal is completely dysfunctional, then it's a complete breach of the contract. And although it's nobody's fault, but the contract does say that I'm supposed to give you a chamor. So I'm supposed to give you a chamor, that's a seifa. And again, exceptions and stories, believe me, the Gemara will make kishkas out of this. Open for questions, for a short questions, unless you, we'll continue. Oh, wow. Okay, fine, good. Says the Gemara. Nice. Says the Gemara. The Gemara is now asking, what is the difference between two parts of the Mishnah? Ma'ishna reisha deloika maflig, u'ma'ishna seifa deka maflig, which means, why is it in the reisha? If you remember the very first line of the Mishnah, the first sentence, what did it say? That loy maflig. It says, if I told you, I'm the owner, I told you to take it to the mountain, you took it to the valley, it died in the valley, pay me. It doesn't say what the reason was. It sounds like even if the reason was because of what, any reason, even the most, I don't know, neutral kind of reason, he died, nothing to do with slipping or heat, he's still chayiv. And yet in the Seifa, we were much nicer to the renter and we said, oh, it's true that it changed from the words of alibis. Let's see what happened. Hey, nice and slow, depends. The Seifa was much nicer to the Soicher. What did the Seifa say? Let's say if he was told to take the animal up the mountain and he took it to the valley, and in the valley it slipped, he's potter. Why? You told me to take it to the most slippery place, to the mountains there in the Golan, in the Alps, in the Himalaya, and I took it to a much steadier place and it slipped, I'm potter. Yet the Resha doesn't care about that. The Resha seems to be much more all-encompassing, saying, no, whatever happens to the animal, yeah, you chayev because you changed from the words of alibis. What's the story? And it's the same Mishnah. How can the Mishnah, yeah, indirectly contradict itself? Sounds like the Resha has some kind of a mega death, mega issue that regardless where it happened, in the mountain or the valley, the renter will always be chayev because it changed from the words of alibis. The question is, what is this reality? What is this horrible thing that happened in the Resha that regardless of the cause of death, the soicher is always chayev to pay just for the mere fact that it changed from the words of the balabais? What is it? Says the Gemara, we're going to have 4 answers, as far as I remember, 3 answers, and the 4th one will be a longer story. Amud Rabbi Yanai, in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, they said, Reisha Shemesa Machmas Avil. Oh, I'm following Rashi now. In the Reisha, yeah, we talk about a case in which the animal died, and we don't see any clear reason. He died, and the reason not so clear, and we can very easily allege it, we can connect it to the air, either the bad air one way or the bad air the other way. The Amrinan, we say, Avira dehar kotla, the Amrinan Avira debika kotla, which means if the animal died and it's not because of slipping or because of the heat, it's a neutral matzav, he died because of, yeah, the bad air. Now, bad air can be both ways, yeah? In other words, let's say the animal just died, and now the owner can say, listen, you changed? You changed from what I told you? Ah, well, wait. I told you my animal is used to the mountain. It's used to mountain air. You took it to the bika. The air in the bika is just bad for it. The air is bad. And even though we don't know it for a fact, because you changed from my words, you are yoda alha tachtoino. You are now, yeah, in a deficit, so to speak, and now you changed and it just died. The assumption is, what do we do all the time? We breathe. So mistama, something to do with the breathing with the air is not good. And I told you, my animal is a mountain animal. You took it to the bika, it's stuffy and hot. Can you stay in Tel Aviv for more than 2 minutes? Stuffy. Or the other way, my animal is used to the bika. My animal likes the heat. It likes the humidity. It thrives on it. You took it to the cold mountain. He died because it's too cold. It's too, I don't know, too much of fresh air for it. Yeah. Mainly, we can allege and connect it to the bad air either way, because meaning the Resha is telling you that as long as it's not clearly the opposite reason, the Resha and the Sefer don't argue. They say this, they sing the same song. The Sefer is telling you that if the reason is clearly a reason which didn't kill it, which means which was not supposed to kill it. You told me to take it to the mountain where it's slippery. I believe your animal won the Guinness Book of Record of going in slippery places, like those, sports people. You told me the animal can manage slippery places, and now in the bika it slipped. That's not my fault. Then he's exempt. In the Reisha, we're talking about a very powerful situation. He died out of nowhere, so to speak. And may like an legend say, listen, air is different here than there, and therefore, mistama, that was the cause. That's answer number 1. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina gives you a similar answer. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina Omar, Kigon shemeso machmas uvtzana. Uvtzana is the word which we saw recently, appears a few places in the Gemara. Uvtzana means tiredness. He died because of tiredness, or I would say in modern language, exertion. In other words, he died because of hard work. What does that mean? What does that mean? It says Rashi as follows. Either we see that he died, he went up the mountain. Let's say it's an animal supposed to be in the bika. My animal is not from Switzerland, doesn't know how to hike the mountains. And I told you, take it to the bika, take it to the valley. It can only walk in straight places. Then Yeman went up and up and up the mountain, got tired. Yeah. The chiddush is more mechudesh to the case of the Mishnah of Machmas Aliyah. Afterwards, he walked for a while and looked all very nice. But because of the first exertion, because of the first mamatz effort, to climb up the mountain, even though later it looked like it's walking okay, and then he died suddenly, then I can connect it and say, you changed from my words. Your starting point is a bad starting point. And therefore, he walked up in a way that was not supposed. He wasn't supposed to endure this. And then he walked, even though he walked nicely afterwards, the effects of the climbing up, the aliyah, are still there, and I can be mechayiv you. Or the other way around. Uvtzena in the bika. Let's say in the bika, it's not machmas choim of the Mishnah that we can't see that it's mamish sweating, and you can't see the sweat and the panting, but you see the animals walking in the bika, which is hotter. Hotter means more mamatz. Yeah, when can you serve? When you feel more invigorated? When it's cold. Yeah, when it's hot, it's like more sluggish. You went very, very sluggish and hot because the heat is like, even though the heat is not visible, you don't see the sweat or the panting or anything. Still, we can connect the tiredness, the exertion, the effort to the mislocation. It's similar to the first answer, but it's not exactly the same. First answer says more machmir. He just died. I will connect you to the wrong location. The second answer is saying no. If it just died out of nowhere, we won't connect it to the location. But if it's really, we see that there's some kind of mamatz, we see some kind of exertion, we'll always connect it either to the mountain or the valley and be mechayiv you. Answer number 3, 1 second. Answer number 3, Rabba. Rabba comes with a big chiddush. Here comes a big chiddush. Rabba Omar, Rabba is breaking here, a myth. Rabba Omar, he was bit by a snake. Bit by a snake, and then I can tell you, you took it to the mountain, you should have taken it to the valley. Reb, you are asking, I'm reading your mind. What's the connection? Male tiredness, you can connect, I'm more tired in Tel Aviv than Yerushalayim or vice versa. When it's out of no, but Nochosh, let's assume there's the same amount of snakes in the valley than in the mountain. So what's the connection? Well, I'm now defending the Soicher. It's true I took it to the wrong place. So what? But obviously you can see that the cause of death was absolutely disconnected from the location. Here we come to a very big Yesod, says Tosfos and the Ritva, and those of you who were not with us earlier should listen to this now, and those of you who were with us should also listen to it. In Daf Lamed Vav and in Daf Mem and Beis, there is a big concept in Halacha called Chilosei b'Pshia v'Soifei be'oines, which means if a person started b'Pshia, I told you, please, I'm giving the example right here. I told you, please look after my animal, put it only in the mountain. Yeah. And you are poshea, meaning the first initial action you did was when you disobeyed the balabais and you took it instead of the mountain where you instructed to take it, you took it to the hot bika, and then he was bit by a snake. Bitten by a snake is a complete oinus. And it does not have to do at all with being in the mountain or the valley. True. And therefore we define it as oines. A soicher is potter me'oines, right? A soicher is potter me'oines. So it's not a shoil, it's a soicher. And therefore what? And therefore, because you started with the wrong foot, b'pshia, although the cause of death or the cause of damage was oines, the big machloikes, Abai, Rov, Daf Lamed Vav, Daf Memeh, it's a big story. This is Rabba talking. Listen, Rabba is of the opinion that we don't judge you at the time of oines. We judge you at the time when you misbehaved. You took it to the place where the snake was. What do you mean? There are snakes in the other place. True. But because you took it to the place we're not supposed to, although the final outcome, the final is the Makeh Bepatish was an oines, I'm sorry, you're in our bad book. Because at that stage, oines is not pattering you. You already are, wearing the wrong kind of badge. And when the oines comes, you're going to be chayev. Remember the story of the Trifa Durvani? What? I think so. I think in most cases, I think are chayev. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the halacha. It's actually a very good time for questions now. Question break. Yeah. Rabbi Chia bar Abba. The fourth and very different answer. Now we have a completely different answer. Answer number 4. Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Omar Rabbi Yochanan answers, Ho mani. You know who is the author of the first part of the Mishnah? Rabbi Meir. Our Mishnah actually has a machloikas. The first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah were not written by the same Tana. It's a bit difficult because we don't see it in the style of the Mishnah, but that's what he believes we have to say. The first part of the Mishnah was written by Rabbi Meir. So, what did Meir say? The Omar. Meir said, whoever whoever actually doesn't listen to Baal Habais, yeah, then whoever doesn't listen to the Baal Habais and change from the conditions of Baal Habais, of the owner, Nikra Gazlan is called a Gazlan. Wow. Which means. The first person, excuse me, the first part of the Mishnah, what did the Mishnah say? I don't care what you did, how you did, whatever. The mere fact I told you, Bika, and you went to the valley and you went to the mountain or vice versa, that means that you changed from what the owner said, and therefore that gives you a not so nice title. You called a Gazlan a thief. So you called a thief. So what? A Gazlan is always Chayiv B'Oinsin. A Gazlan is even more than Shoyel. A Gazlan, if a person, and we know that from Bava Kama, once a person has the halachic definition of a Gazlan, what did he do? He schlepped it from the owner's house in order to obtain it. Ooh, Rabbi Meir is giving a new definition. Even if you're a nice guy, you're a soicher, you're an honest guy, and for 5 days you behaved beautifully. Starling. But in the 6th day, your Yetzer Hara came in and says, who cares about this nerdy Baal Habais? He told me to walk in the Bika. I like sports because I'm a very adult, 15 years old, and I want to now hike up the mountain with a chamor. Otherwise, it's a very nice guy. The second you change from the conditions of Baal Habais, you call the Gazlan. One. Therefore, a person who's a Gazlan is chayav on any oinus in the world. Anything that happens to an animal or any object in the hands of a Gazlan, even shoyel, more than a shoyel, is chayav on oinus and also chayav on meisa machmas malacha. Anything, once you're a Gazlan, we don't like you. I'm being very superficial now, yeah? But once a Gazlan is a Gazlan, for many reasons, anything that happens to the animal, you have to give back because you stole. If you steal, you have to give back, right? It's konoi, it's yours, and therefore I don't care what happened. Not a snake, lightning, UFO came. I don't care what happened to the animal. Once you get the title of a Gazlan, anything that happened, you have. However, the Seifa does not believe in that. The Seifa that was more lenient with the soicher, with the renter, and says, let's see, let's check what happened. Maybe it slipped or maybe it was hot. The Seifa says no. As long as the soicher is not really trying to steal it, the soicher is not really there. I'm pulling it to my house in order never to give it back. That's not the story. He's generally an okay person who definitely wants to give back the chamor in good condition. Elama, he changed from the conditions, believing nothing's going to happen. According to Chachami, he may not be a nice guy, but it's not a Gazlan. It's not a Gazlan. The mere fact you change from the orders of Baal Habais doesn't render you as Gazlan, and therefore you're not chayav in oinsin. So what are you chayav? Only in real pshia. What's pshia? If you, excuse the language, stupidly took it to the mountain and really in the mountain it slipped. I told you it's going to slip in the mountain. You took it to the valley and it died out of heat. It's hot in the valley. Good morning. And therefore what? In such a case you'd be chai. But the Seifa is not Rabbi Meir, is the non-Rabbi Meir Tanoim. And they believe that really you're not considered a Gazlan. If you're not a Gazlan, you're not chai be'oinsin. You're regular soicher. That's a machloikas. From now on until almost the end of the page, or halfway through the page, we're going to concentrate on where did we see that Rabbi Meir says such a thing, that if you're not trying to steal, but you changed something from the owner's original intent and you did your own thing in the object, that alone renders you as a Gazlan. That's quite a harif thing. Who says that? Rabbi Meir. We're going to ask now, and I'm continuing the Gemara, hi Rabbi Meir. Which Rabbi Meir? Which means, which statement of Rabbi Meir did you see all over Shas or anywhere in Shas that says that the person who changed from the request of Baal Habais is showing a Gazlan? Which Rabbi Meir is that? Break the Gemara. Now we're going to do a search. Yeah, we're going to search, and by the third attempt, we're going to find the Rabbi Meir that says that changing from the Baal Habais is called a Gazlan. Ilem Rabbi Meir the Tzaba. Maybe you mean to tell me Rabbi Meir of the one who dyed the wool. And we actually mentioned him 2 days ago. That none. It says in the Mishnah in Bava Kama daf Kufam Beis, Anoiser Tzemer letzaba, a person who gave tzemer wool for its sabah. What's a sabah? Painter, dyer. By the way, the correct word in Hebrew is not sabai. Look, all the Israelis say, but sabah. That's a correct word. Sabah, sabah, and not sabai. Yep. Anoiser Tzemer letzaba. A person gave wool to who? A person is a professional dyer, you say, painter. You want to paint the wool? Dyer. I don't know. He one who dyes the wool. That's a profession. To dye wool, to dye fabrics. That's his profession. Dyer. Okay. Okay. Dye lebal minadin. Anoisen semer letzaba litzba loy odoy. And he clearly said, please dye that red. And the chacham v'tzva shachor. He did it black. Okay. Shachor v'tzva odoy, or the other way around. Doesn't make a difference yet. Then what? Well, you change from what Babais told you. Rabbi Meir Oimer. Rabbi Meir says, Noisen lo dmei tzimroi. What does that mean? Rabbi Meir says, you're not a gazlan, or you wouldn't have been called a gazlan. You're a generally honest person who takes the wool, but from some reason, I don't know how mistaken that was. That's another sugya. But at the end of the day, you clearly changed in an irrevocable way, right? Now the wool is dyed black, black, black instead of red, red, red. Yeah. Now, when you dyed the wool your way, you changed from the request of Balabais. Sounds familiar? Now, at that moment, you became a Gazlan. In other words, Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman says, Mechavrusa told me, usually a Gazlan works in two stages. You pull it, Meshicha or Agba, from the Balabais' house, then you make a Shinui, right? Remember from Bava Kama. Yeah, you take planks of wood, you steal them, as we say, steal, and then you made them into a chair. Now the chair is yours, and you have to give him money for the original material. That's a classic case. Here, according to Rabbi Meir, it's a one-stop shop. It's both in 1 second, two birds in one stone. You didn't pull it to your reshut. You're not trying to steal it. But the second you changed it, you gained two things. Either you acquired it and changed it. So who is now the owner of the tzemer? The dyer. The painter is the one owning it now. Oh, what do you mean? He just owns it? No, says Rabbi Meir, he'll have to give the balabais the price of what? The value of the raw wool, of the white undyed wool. Why? Just like every Gazlan that steals, raw pieces of wood, planks, and makes them to a beautiful chair, doesn't have to pay beautiful chair. He has to pay the original material because that's what he stole. So Lemaise, it's true. He's a Gazlan. Who's a Gazlan? The dyer, the painter. How much does he have to pay? The original wool, undyed wool, which is worth maybe 100 shekel that he pays, and he keeps now the wool that is dyed wrong, which is now worth 300. He keeps it. Or otherwise, if the balabais wants to buy it from him, let's say balabais says, "Okay, Yushlam Mazel. Okay, I'll get the red one." He'll have to pay now in full to the dyer, because the dyer is now the Gazlan who's the owner. So now the Meister B'Meir is telling us what? The changing from the request of Balabais is called Gzela. That's what we're looking for. Now, if you think that something here is unfair because the guy changed from what he was told to do and now makes money, you know who thinks like you? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says something here doesn't work right. And we mentioned this Rabbi Yehuda yesterday, Rabbi Isai. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, says Rabbi Yehuda, Yodai Allah, Kol HaMeshane, that's our Mishnah. Kol HaMeshane Yodai LaTachtoino. Im HaShvach Yeser LeYetzia, Noisan LeYetzia. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I don't like that game the guy's playing. Why? He Lamaister changed and he didn't do what the Balabais told him. He has to be fined. He has to be punished. And therefore, let's say Balabais at the end of the day he wants the red or black wool, then Balabais should always pay him the less of the two. Which means what? Let's say he invested in the white wool 100 shekels, and now it's a beautiful piece, not beautiful in the eyes of the beholder, but beautiful in the eyes of other people who like red. Yeah, it makes him see red, but other people like it. So now instead of 100 of investment, it's worth now 300. You'll only pay him 100. The one who ordered the work, pay you 100. I'll go home. I'll pay you the minimum. If it was an unsuccessful job and he invested 100 shekels, now in the market it goes for 50. The shvach is 50. It's a loss. I'll pay you only 50. We're not concentrating on Rabbi Yehuda, which again makes sense because the Yoda Tachtoino halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, as we saw in our Mishnah, by the way. This Gemara complements the Mishnah that we said yesterday, right? Because what did we say? Our Mishnah said, "Kol Mishani Yodel Tachtoino," to paskin like Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Meir. We punish the misbehaving dyer, right? But we're not concentrating on that. Now we care about Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir told us that if you change the wool from black to red, that's it. You're Gazlan. You have, a sticker on your forehead, Gazlan. And now what? Now you chayav everything. Oh, so maybe our Mishnah at the beginning is the same Rabbi Meir that says you took it to the mountain versus the valley. You changed from what I told you. You're Gazlan, and anything that happens now, even struck by lightning, you're chayav. What's the difference between our Mishnah and the wool? No, you tell me. There's a clear difference between the change of the Mishnah and the change of the wool story. And thank you, 1 second. He didn't listen to the owner in either case. So what's the difference? Yeah. Okay. Also the donkeys in Israel. He took it to him. We want to say that the person, no, the change, we always say that he's a Gazlan, Le'inyan, defining him as a Gazlan, we try to say it's in both cases. The question is why over here? Now the Gemara is going to try and say that in the Mishnah is not a Gazlan, while the one who dyed the wool is a Gazlan. Which one is a stronger change? With the wool or with the donkey? Not necessarily. There was oinus. A snake came. No, he died afterwards. He died afterwards. At the moment of change, which change is more significant? Obviously the wool. Obviously the wool. It's not black, it's red. You can't change it. You're going to wash it off. Maybe today with chemicals you can. I don't know. The shank and the donkey, before anything happened, the actual change itself is not so big. I just changed the location. The donkey is the same donkey. Says the Gemara, Mimai, how do you know? How can you compare one to the other? Dilma shiny hossam, maybe over there, but the wool it's different. The kanya b'shinui maise. Over there, yeah, we're talking about a real change called in Bava shinui maise. I changed the body of the thing. Well, that's a whopping shinui that cannot be changed. The wool that died, I don't think you can make this black suit become red. Hopefully not. Yeah, maybe you can paint it over. It's not the same quality. It's not. You change the actual thing. A donkey, I just took it. If anything goes well and he doesn't die, it's just a different location. When you travel from, I don't know, New York to Los Angeles, you're a different person, you're the same guy. Ella, therefore we reject it. We did not yet find a proof to say that the kind of change mentioned in our Mishnah, according to Rabbi Meir, would be a real change that makes him a Gazlan. So we keep trying. Elahor Rabbi Meir. So now we're talking about the following Rabbi Meir, the Magbis Purim. Oh, it's almost Shavuos, we'll learn about Purim. What's the story Magbis Purim? Let me ask you a question before we start. When you donate your money to Kupa Shel Tzedakah for Matanos La'anim, would you like the Oni to use it for his Shavuos cheesecake, or do you want him to use it for a Sudas Purim? Sudas Purim. Yeah, and that's part of your mitzvah, to make sure that the Oni has a Sudas Purim. On Shavuos, you'll give him other money, Bli Kesher. So now, let's see what it says about that, about Magbis Purim, the Purim Tzedakah collection. The Tanya, it says in the Baisa, Magbif Purim lePurim, which means, yeah, the mois that the people collect for Purim, the Gabbai Tzedakah, when they consult the Rov, what shall do with the money of Purim? All the money of Purim should go to buy the anim, Purim food, Purim stuff, Purim simcha. Magbi sa'ir loy sa'ir, which means, let's say, Baruch Hashem, there's so much tzedakah given in Ramat Bet Shemesh, so now there's, yeah, too much money, you give them all to the anim of the city, you don't give it to anim of other city. Ve'en medakdikin badover, very misleading words. En medakdikin badover means as follows. One could argue and say, wait a second. En medakdikin badover, let's say the Kupa Shel Tzedakah gave already a lot of food to the anim, and then of Purim, yeah, and then they're going to say, wait. Why do the anim need so much? Maybe I'll be medakdik, maybe I'll be nitpicking with anim. I think for a family it's enough to have X amount of money, and what? The rest of the money, let's just give them just medakdik, just enough for the Purim Suda, just about, not fancy wine and not too much of a fancy cake, yeah? And the rest of the money, I'll have money left over for other tzedakahs to build a new shul, or maybe give it to the Samanim for Pesach. We don't say that. You give them barachvus. You give them as much as they need for Purim. You're going to see what happens when it's too much, yeah? Aval, so what do you do? Let's say you really have too much money. Let's say you do. Let's say you have a small neighborhood, yeah, not so many anim, they got $5 million. What can they need to do $5 million in one day for Sudas Purim? How much can they eat? Yeah, they're going to buy champagne and caviar all day. Aval, so what do you do? Let's say you buy meat, you buy fresh meat, you buy live, that's what you used to do in the olden days. You buy livestock, you buy a golim, calves, the shoichtin, you shech them, The anim eat as much as they can, but there are too many shechted meat. There's too much meat left over in the freezers of Kupa Shel Tzedakah. So really, we gave every oni, every little thin oni, we gave him 3 yud on a whole box of meat. Still left over. So what do you do with the leftover? Yesh gvul. Now, says Rashi, you sell the meat that you shechted, the frozen meat now, the meat, you sell it to wherever, sell it to Rami Lev, you sell it to Osher Ad, and what? And the cash you keep for later tzedakahs, you keep them for other tzedakahs. That's legitimate. When it gets to that point, yeah. Now, Rabbi Lezer is not arguing with Tanakama, very misleading. He's not arguing with Tanakama. He just says, up until now, who is the person we talk to? Who are the people in the limelight of the first part of the Brisa? The Gabbai Tzedakah. I'm a Gabbai Tzedakah. I'm not. But let's say somebody who did Gabbai Tzedakah, he asks the Rav, what do you do with extra money? The Rav will tell him, give berachvis to the anim. Don't be nitpicking kamtzen. Give them nice meal for Purim. They deserve it. And the rest, you sell it and keep it for later. That's the Gaboin, from the Gaboin point of view. Now we're talking to the Oni. Now Mr. Oni Rash Vidal is coming to the Rav and asking him the following very painful question. What would be if the Oni says, listen, Rabbi, I'm sorry, I just got most Purim, and mitzidi, I don't mind eating, bread and margarine and water, but my daughter needs new shoes. For me, it's more important. Is the Oni himself allowed to change and buy, instead of buying with the money to buy food for Purim? Would he be able to buy instead of that shoes? Yeah, he feels it's more of a need. What's the halacha? Magvis Purim Purim. No, the Oni is not allowed to take from the Purim gelt, that he's been given, the Moesanim, the Matonis Lavyonim. He's not allowed to take from that even one string, one shoestring, one strap for his sandal that you keep for the food. You need shoes? Go to the Gabbai Tzedakah, tell them, look at my daughter, torn shoes. That's another Amaisa. But the money of Purim should stay for Purim, Elaim can, unless Hitnu b'mamed an Shiur. Unless he made the clear T'nai, he went to An Shiur, to whoever is in charge of the tzedakah, to the Yirya, whoever is in charge of the tzedakah, the welfare, whatever they are, and you may have to make a T'nai in their presence, a T'nai with them, that you should know, I'm making a condition that l'chatchila, before Purim, all the money I get, I'm going to give to them. Why do you need that condition? Divrei Rabbi Yaakov Shomar Mishum Rabbi Meir. All that is Rabbi Yaakov B'Shem Rabbi Meir. B'Shem Rabbi Meir. In other words, Rabbi Meir says, if you make a condition, what do you mean making a condition? If you let the donors know, if you let the donors know, listen, Mr. Donors, I don't know who you are, but I'm talking to the people who represent you, donors, to the Vad of the ear, and I'm telling you, you should know, if you give me tzedakah, if you give tzedakah to Beryl Shmerel the poor, then what? I will use it not for food, but for the sandals, that's allowed. But if you didn't say that, and you are changing from the owner's money opinion, you're changing his words. In other words, you are making a change without the awareness of the Baal Habayis, then it's also the Rashbag Mekel. Shim Gamliel says it's allowed. Wait a second. So we saw a very funny, interesting similarity. You see that Rabbi Meir says that the Oni is basically bound by the conditions of the Gvir, of the one who gave the money. Yeah. If somebody gave money to the Oni cannot just do whatever he wants. We know that the person wanted to give money for the Suda, and you take the money and you change it into buying yourself a new pair of shoes, then it's not allowed. So you see, Rabbi Meir believes that we follow the opinion, not the opinion. Yeah, we have to follow the instruction of the Baal Habayis, and if you don't, it's not allowed. You're like a Gazlan. Answers the Gemara, that's not the same. That's not the same. Why? Dil Mahosa, maybe over there, there's another idea. Also, Nami over there, the person who wants to be Mekayim the mitzvah, selfish. He wants to be Mekayim the mitzvah of most Purim. How is he Mekayim the mitzvah? By the Oni buying through the Purim. But if you're going to buy with it your shoes, or even very, very essential things such as shoes, actually, then it's not what Baal Bais wanted. That's mamish. Clearly, we know, a non-Sahadi, we know every frum Jew wants to be Mekayim the 4 mitzvahs of Purim, the 4 mems, And definitely once we come if you buy not manot, but you buy what? You don't buy food, you buy shoes, your mom is changing for what he clearly wants. That's mamish like a condition. Says Rashi, very strong language. If you use it for something else, it's as if the Oshir, the rich guy, never gave it to you. The donor Kilu never gave it to you. That's where you're Gazlan. Get what I'm saying? In other words, the money is giving to the Oni on condition, clear condition. With that, you buy food. Otherwise, what? There's not. Otherwise, you're ganav. You take if you once you take it to the shoe store, you buy shoes with that. That is an act of gneva because it's clearly not what the Baal Bais wants. Mashenkin in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, with all due respect, is a preference but not a condition. That's what the Ritva says. In our Mishnah, the Baal Bais says, "Listen." He says, that's a mountain animal. Take it to the mountains. But it's not like that if you take it to the valley, there was never an agreement. If he writes it, it's different. If he says, I'm only giving you condition, you take it to the mountain, and if you take it to the valley, then there's nothing between. That's true, but that's not what happened here. By the Purim Suda, it's mamish condition. Everybody knows that I want to be Mekayim my mitzvah. Yeah, I want you to have a nice meal, but I want to be part of the story. And I want to have the mitzvah. If you go and buy with it new computer, which may be a very important new computer for your job, that's very nice. But it's mamish changing from what I want. And therefore, retroactively, it's as if I never gave you that money. You're stealing the money from my pocket. The Shenkin, when I tell you this animal is more of a mountain creature than valley creature, it wasn't stated as a condition. So maybe when you change, the change is not that horrible, not that significant, and maybe the person is not a Gazlan. Again, we didn't yet find a source to tell me that such a slight change from mountain to valley, which is not a condition or not like a change in the body like red and black, where did we find Rabbi Meir taking it to that extent and saying that such a small change is called gezela? Of course, it's a pshia. By the way, don't get me wrong. Of course, the secher is wrong. He's a pashia for taking it to the wrong place. But why do you call him a gazlan? That's much stronger. We didn't yet find Rabbi Meir that says that level of shinu is a gezela. Hello, Rabbi Meir. Oh, that is now the last, and this is the maskono. Very good. Ella who? Rabbi Meir. The following Rabbi Meir is the real Rabbi Meir. Is Vos says the Gemara like this. The Tanya says the Brisa. Now we're going to find what? A statement of Rabbi Meir that tells you that even a slight change from the rotzoin of the owner already renders the person who changed Gazlan. Right? The Tanya. Let's see. Also about tzedakah. It's another Brisa about tzedakah. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar oimer mishum Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir. A noisen dinar leoni likach loy chaluk. A person gave the oni a dinar. He sees it doesn't have a nice chaluk. Chaluk is an outer garment, like today we call a robe, like a gown. Yeah. He sees the guy in the street with a really torn chaluk. He says, the guy comes in the morning to shul to ask for tzedakah. Is making a chasana for his son. I see you don't look respectable enough. Your son's going to get married. Buy yourself a nice, chalat, a nice kapita for your son's wedding, and that's what I'm giving you the money for. Okay. Lo yikach by talis. Now he really needs a talis. Talis is not necessarily a talis we call today. Talis may mean an outer garment, more like a scarf. Maybe it's a talis, whatever. Don't change it and buy a different kind of garment. Talis. If you told him buy with the talis, lo yikach b'chaluk, right? In other words, if the oni was asked to buy a suit, let's say, don't buy without a sweater. Okay, let's put it this way. I ask you to buy a suit, don't buy a hat, in today's terms. Why not? What's wrong? That's what the oni needs. Oh, aha. Now it's written black and white. Why is the oni not allowed to buy something else? Because he is disobeying, he's changing, he's playing around with the das, with the opinion, with the will of Balabais. Oh, and here you can't say Purim. In other words, here the Balabais, l'chayr, it's time a preference. Because Balabais buy Purim versus non-Purim. Oh, let me define it better. Purim, right? The mitzvah of Matanis Levyonim is a separate mitzvah from Tzedakah, right? You give Tzedakah from your Meiser, Purim comes, you still have to give Mois Purim, right? Matanis Levyonim. And to change Mamish from Mois Purim to something else, you're destroying the mitzvah of Balabais. That was strong. Here is just tzedakah, the both tzedakah. What do you care Balabais if he buys the chaluk or talis? But we see that we see that if Balabais cares, it's not a super condition and goes crazy, but that is his will. The Balabais asks you to buy what? To buy a suit and you bought a tie, let's say, or something like that, yeah, we see that change, which is not super horrific, but it's a change, makes him what? L'chora Gazlan. He's not allowed to. So Mimele, we also see by our Mishnah the same thing. When there was not a condition, but a preference, take it to the mountain, and obviously meaning not the Bika, that too, if he changes from that, it's called a Gazlan. Now, we're going to stay with that answer, but the Gemara still has an attempt. The Gemara will now make an attempt to reject the answer. Then I can hear questions. Beg the Gemara, wait a minute. The Dilma may be shiny Hossam. Maybe over there it's different. Why? Maybe over there there's a factor that's worse, that's more grave, that doesn't exist here. Because over there, the Osul Amichshadeh, maybe people, the friends of the donor, the friends of the rich guy, may come to suspect him. Why? The Amri, Inchi, because they say, Omer Plania Zabdina Le Levusha Leploini Anya, the bad tongues, the bad mouth in town, the big talkers, what would they say? Look, you saw the big usher, you know, the Mr. Richmond? Yeah, he said, he promised he's going to buy the poor man a levush, a chaluk, and we all know that he had this project to buy him a new chaluk, and look, Mr. Poor Guy comes to shul without a new chaluk, he didn't buy him. I always knew he's a liar. All the Achnayenta people talk. Yeah, Inami, or alternatively they would say, Zabnina leglima. You know, he always said he's going to buy a meglima, an outer garment. He didn't buy, which means maybe over there there's another reason why we're very particular, because we care about the kavod of the donor. That's why his wish has to be, no, his wish is a command, as they say for the oni. But here, with the mountain and the valley, there's nothing to tzedakah or being nice. The Rashi says something very strong. They'll think he's a noider of Mekayim. Wow. They'll think it was noider tzedakah and did not follow his neder. Wow. Sok the Gemara, that's a very nice svara, but it's not in the words of the Brisa. Whenever we learn Gemara, we should know. We can have very nice ideas. Does it fit into the words? The Gemara says, Im ken, if so, litni mipnei chashad. He doesn't say that. The Brisa didn't say that the reason why the Oni should stick to, down to the T, to the wish of Balabais, is because the Balabais would otherwise be, Nechshad would be suspected. No, the Brisa says clearly, you know why the Oni should obey the Balabais, because you're not allowed to change from Lord to Balabais. Must be the mere fact that he changed from the original will of Balabais. If you use the money for the wrong thing, it's like stealing the money. I gave you 500 shekels to buy a suit, and for 500 shekels you bought shirts and ties. That's a change. You changed, meaning you took his money to the wrong direction. It's instead of like mitzido, like you threw it to the garbage, and you called it gazlan. Same thing. Let's summarize now. Let's summarize. So Lamaskono, according to the fourth teretz, the author of the first part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. And he says, listen, once the person makes a change from the preference of Balabais, not even a condition, Balabais told you clearly, take it to the mountain, not the valley. And you took it to the valley, bad news. At that happy moment when you took it to the valley, you're Gazlan. It's clearly you took it out of his house. Figuratively, imagine, I'm not saying that's really the pshat, imagine Kilo, the mountain in his house. You take it from the mountain down to the hot, sticky, disgusting valley, and that valley is not where he wants it to be. It's Kilo, you stole it from his house. He stole it from his house. I don't care what happens next. It's struck by lightning. I don't know. Creatures from outer space came and hit it. Loch patli. Anything that happens past this point of you being a Gazlan, that happy moment, or not so happy moment, you chai be'oinsin. Anything happens past that, you chai, that's Rabbi Meir. Chachamim, which are the second part of the Mishnah, they say no. They say Nachinami. The person, just because he changed from Babais wanted, is not yet called a Gazlan. Gazlan has its own terms. Gazlan is who? Somebody who takes it from your house. It makes a shinui, This person who definitely wants to give it back and definitely is not trying to steal, he changed from what you prefer, he changed your preferences to his preferences, he's not a Gazlan. And therefore, when it would be chayev? Only when there's pshia. When there's a pshia, he is posher. He's not a good guy for what? Taking it to the wrong place. But only if the death is a result of that wrong place, you took it to the humid place and out of humidity you're chayev. You took it to the slippery place and died because of slipping, then you chayev, not otherwise. That's the summary of our mission. Very nice. Let's continue a little bit. The 3 minutes we have. Yeah, good. Says the Mishnah being quoted now by the Gemara. Oh, a person rented the chamor, the donkey, and all of a sudden hivrika, my vevrika. What does it mean hivrika? Gimu here in Bavel, the translate the word hivrika nehorisa. Nehorisa means that it's partially blind. Yeah, it is visually impaired. It cannot see as well, cannot walk because it can't see. In other words, it is manageable because the owner can still lead it, but it's slower. It's more, a bit clunky. Rove Omar Avzikas. Rove says, no, we're talking here about Avzikas are worms in the feet. It has worms in the feet. It can still walk, but Lamaisa, with these worms, don't make it exactly exciting for the Chamor to walk. It walks slower, funny, and therefore it's not the same quality. Story to do with the term of Avzikas. There was a person who told people in the times of whichever kingdom there was, Avzikas b'milsa de malka. A person shouted out in the street and he said, there is an Avzika, there are worms that start eating up the milsa de malka, milsa bigde milas, the fancy garments of the king, are being eaten by moth. Rashi says ash, like moth. Omrulei, they asked him b'mai. They started taking him seriously, and they asked, what are you talking about? Betlei kesef or betlei dohov? Which means, did the worm come and eat the tlei, the garments which are embroidered with silver, with fibers of silver, with silver strings, or betlei zohov, or with the ones from gold? Why? What difference does it make? Ikadami, some say betlei kesef omer v'katlua. Some said, he said that it happened to the silver ones, and they killed him. Why did they kill him? Because he's pulling their leg, because something embroidered with silver, or according to Rashi, by the way, according to Rashi, tlei kesef means it's made out of flax, linen. And linen linen is not attacked by the moth, and therefore you're pulling a leg, you're playing jokes about the king's garments. They killed him. Some say no, he said it happened to the golden, either embroidered with gold, or golden means that it happened to the wool that is dyed red like gold, and that could happen, and they let him go. He was serious, he was warning the king, and that was a good thing. I don't know, the connection, the story is obviously connected only because of the idea of the worms, nothing else. I looked all over for some more meaningful ideas here, I didn't find. We're up to the wide line, and Imer Hashem tomorrow, getting ready to Matan Torah. Thank you to everybody on YouTube, everybody on Torah Anytime, and of course everybody here in Abba Shalom B'Shem. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow we are in Ein Ches Amud Beis in the first wide line. Have a great day, and let's keep preparing for Matan Torah. Thank you.